Hello, welcome in. Oh boy, let's get this reset. Welcome in. There we go. Hello, hello, welcome in. Today should be a fun little stream. Nothing crazy. Just getting all my ducks in a row here. All right. What is up? What is up? So we're going to do a little bit of flashbang. Set up a little Go LS. Go PLS. Yeah, that's right. So this is my first time using my Neovim config for Go development. So we're going to do a couple of things here today. Ensure servers are installed. So, Mason, Go, this guy, cool. So we'll make sure that this one is installed. And then on the setup, we want to just enable it. So that will be somewhere down here. We will do Go PLS. I don't know what all this stuff is. And then we've got all configs. Always helpful to have a look around. Default config. File types look good. Usually that's it. Usually you just sort of start over. C. Install. Downloads all the things. And sesh main. Let's see what happens. You like having these? Okay, so you like having Go thumped. Oh, the importer one sounds interesting too. So that one's used for like, I'm guessing like sorting and styling the way imports are assigned. Cool. Let's give it a try. Is that like a conform thing? It probably is. Conform. So let's bring this guy up for you guys so you can see. How do I find the ones available? Here we go. I think the other Go formatter was what I'm used to. I've used this one before. Enforces stricter formats. while backwards compatible. Awesome. So that just means you install it and then conform. Do I literally just call it? Go thumped. What does this stop after first? Use. Oh, it's just going to be one. Cool. So we'll go back, open up a little project. If I was to unindent something, it indents. How about that? Hey, yo, cool. And then can I go to definition? I sure can. Go to definition. Cool. So, I put so much emphasis on allowing others to configure things for me, but it honestly doesn't take very long to set this up myself. So that's very refreshing. Good to see. And we'll do a little bit of practice here. Get things moving. Let's see. Can I make build? Can I make test? And then my lazy vim config. There was a way of showing code coverage. I think it was this guy. In vim coverage. Let's just add that to my config and let's just see if this guy's still working. And here's a quick tour. So I have my init file and it's now just a few lines. Lazy, of course, being the last. And then I have some general options, some auto commands, some basic key mappings. Oh, no, this command is different. Never mind. This command is like how I get my macOS Darwin bindings set up. It's like Command P for plugins, Command Shift P for commands, Command O. What is it? Command Shift O for symbols, although that's not useful here. Yeah, so that's very helpful. And then all of the plugins live under Lua plugins. So nice and simple. So there's coverage. And then what did I bind it to? Coverage TC. Cool. And so what should happen is test coverage should be bound to an out file. And if we look here, we have a coverage.out file. I've never actually looked at this file before. Ah, look at that. It's just a mapping. What's up, Tommy? I've played a little bit with Nix, but I've lately been leaning on simplicity with my workflows, and Nix is not simple. There's a whole learning curve and a lot of configuration required for that stuff to work well. So in concept, I really like the idea of Nix, but I'm scared to dive into the deep end and really give it a go for my home manager. But there are lots of people in my community that really like it. So hopefully that answers your question. All right, so let's take a look. So here's the main file, coverage. Tmux. Here's one. Lister list. What's a file that's actually going to be useful here? Let's find anything with coverage. Here we go. These are all mocks. list or teammates. So I'm always curious. Something seems to be controlling my gutter. And Andres, you might have some insight. From what I can tell, one of my plugins might be hijacking the gutter configuration. And so simple things like Neovim, the LSP config, I've done something here where I don't want these symbols in the sidebar. Where were they? Oh, no, they're not going to be there. Oh, they went away. All right. Anyway, but like when you have a bad symbol here, this warning, apparently you're supposed to be able to define the sign, set the text to empty, and this is supposed to make it go away. But it doesn't. And I haven't figured out why. Yeah, Tommy, Dev I've heard is another popular choice. I just stick with Stow for syncing dot files, and then all the other stuff, I usually just install things as I need them when I'm like on a new machine. I kind of like the fresh start. I don't like systematizing every single piece of my like packages and plugins and applications and all that, because I often try to simplify even more when I have a fresh start. Yeah, so that's been bothering me, is that I can't seem to control the gutter in the same way that I'd expect. And here, I'd expect to be able to see changes, right? So I see this get signs. Could be one of them. And it's still there. Did I do this right? Enabled. That would be why. All right, so then that's that. But I still get the symbols. And these symbols I was trying to get rid of. And test coverage should be showing something, but it doesn't seem to be. So it's probably worth some time troubleshooting today. People seem to like watching some Neovim config stuff, so I can play around with it. Butter, that's funny. Gutter. I was playing around with changing the sign column. And that, look at that, to do. I guess it's worth verifying. Auto reload true. Coverage file, current working directory coverage out. Oh, that's funny. Coverage. Setup. We know it's calling it just fine. Highlight groups could be interesting. Signs also could be useful. So the coverage file should be there. Coverage out. But nothing is rendered. Something that might be on offer here that I've just don't fully understand or grasp is maybe the line numbers need to be visible as like a, I don't know, as a concept. Opt number true. All right, so that's numbers. This color highlighting, I think, is capuchin, so. And it doesn't seem to do much when you look at it in depth. All right, so let's see. So like lister exists, nothing. Toggle help, sort coverage, open selected file. That's cool. So you can like hit enter and it opens that file. Hey, there we go. So, and that's a starting point. Guess I'll have to play around with this and see what this is about. I'm always curious if it was the number line that needed to be there. Part of me thinks that like something needed to be discovered or found. It's like I don't see it when I pull up this coverage guy and then run it a second time, I do see it. So there's something about it requiring that it detects the file or something. I wonder if anyone else is running into the same problem. Interesting. You have to like load it. Is there like a lazy loading problem? That's probably it, right? So commands. But usually keys, when keys are triggered, it typically is what will create. Usually when you call a key from lazy.envim, the thing shows up correctly. So that's interesting. Coverage. Yep, Sure is. So something about toggle. It needs to load before it toggles. Interesting. Why the heck does it do that? Oh, that isn't very helpful. Coverage load. Oh, these need to be interesting. All right. Did I do something wrong here? Thank you. We need both. This is so dumb and weird. Why the heck do you have to do this? Why do you have to load before? I guess this is a reasonable approach. I think both are going to work fine. It's just a matter of why do you have to do it that way? Yep. Why? Weird. Wait until loaded. Yep. Load and then how would this toggle though? That's my question. Yeah. This is weird. Why do we have to handle all this? Thanks for the plugin, but so he has coverage. They've assigned a local variable, and then they can toggle it. Load callback. If show, then do the opposite, right? I mean, that seems fine, but really it's a problem with the toggle command not toggling. So I always like to learn Lua. I know we talked about Go today, but now we're in Lua, aren't we? So lazy plugins, coverage, toggle, coverage toggle. Here we go. So enabled is assigned unplace sets enabled to false. You'd think the code is fine here, but for some reason, is it like a lazy loading thing? That's my guess, is that the author didn't think about if something's not loaded that the toggle command should load and cover, I guess. But I don't mind shifting and working on, you guys might find it more interesting if we work on sesh. But this is still a weird, I think this is it. Same thing. Well, this will do. To do. So we got some details here. Yeah, sure enough. I kind of like what they've been doing with this T, adding like brackets around it. Test coverage, toggle. Kind of weird and different, but that'll do. And then there's one more piece that I want to do when I'm dealing with this. Add cat. So coverage covered. I can actually probably do this. We do have custom colors assigned here. We'll just do this manually. So this is coverage covered. And then coverage uncovered is red. All right. And then, do I like the symbols? Coverage is just a bar? Sure. Sure. And let's see how we feel about that now. Nice. Part of me doesn't think red is the right color. It feels a bit aggressive. I guess it'll work for now. Okay, and then go test is the next one. Actually, let's go ahead and do our thing here. So conform coverage, LSP config. Can you tell I've been working on other things? All right, so feature add go support. Sweet. And then I like to do the test one. So what did I do before? Lazy. Yes, things are reloading. It's okay. Neo tests, right? So this one, Neo tests. We're doing the good old Lua require. Fun enough, this Go test guy, he did some good improvements, including getting coverage working, I believe. Yeah. And so shout out to Fred reliable adapter for NeoTest. And then DAP will be the next thing that we sort of figure out. Works great with coverage. So big shout out to him. And this is the work that makes this possible for me. And part of me thinks that I could merge these together. Coverage. I feel like there's a lot going on here. So maybe we'll leave it alone. But like for LSP config, I do have some dependencies like lazydev. Didn't seem to make sense for it to be its own file. So for now, I'm sort of mixing some dependencies and their configurations in line. And in other cases, I split them up and they're separate. So let's see how this is going. So main. There you go, installed, very nice. And then we'll do a test, like sources tests, and we should be able to just run error loading module NeoTest. NeoTest requires NVim Neo to be installed. NVim Neo. What is this? I think this might have changed recently, and I haven't updated my personal config to match. Cool. So this needs to go here. We want lazy. Commas are important, everybody. Commas are very important. All right, cool. So there's NVim Neo. Let's go ahead and get our file reopened. No test found. No test found. Let's try a different file. No test found. Interesting. Well, that's not the case. So we have our coverage profiler. We have our NeoTest Go lang attached to nearest test. Run. This is all the stuff that I'd expect, and it doesn't work yet. Make sure that we set this up correctly. All right, Fred, what do you got for us? Installation. NeoTest setup, require adapter. That's, I thought, the way that it worked already. Adapters. We have to require it. And then we put our own config here. Lazy, yeah. All right, I recommend tracking official releases by setting version. Yeah, we don't need to do that. Hey, I wonder if Tommy's still here. Here's some Nick's work. If you wanted to use Nick's, you can. My configuration is on the cover profile. But I'm not seeing it. All right, so let's see if that was enough. Hey, he sees it. This is like the most basic test. Part of me wonders about the naming of this. Neotest Golang seems fine. Neotest. Okay, so the previous format seems to be honoring Neotest. Is it always a lazy thing? We can try lazy false first. No tests found. Right. So now the question is, no tests found. Oh, there is a log file. Uninstall and reinstall A. What could it be? What do you think, Andres? Do you have Neotest configured on your end? I don't remember if I have your Git repo handy. We could also see if Ian has it, but I don't know if he's a Go guy. Yeah, so you're using a different plugin. Yep. Why does that not surprise me? A different plugin works fine, huh? Maybe we can try commenting this out. Neotest summary. Right, so I would have expected at the very least, that this would have found itself no tests. We can try the other one, but I liked the coverage thing. We had already been playing around with it. And I wonder if lazy vim Neotest Go. So this is Fred's. No options are passed. Interesting. He just sort of calls it. Test starts. Okay, so it just doesn't work. Am I supposed to install things in a certain order? Reinstall. No tests. All right. Well, I'm not sure. This was definitely working for me in the past. Try a different test from a different place. There won't be any tests in that one. No tests found. Yep. Troubleshooting. Go found, trees that are available, Neotest available. We know DAP isn't installed yet. This looks like it's okay. GCC. Standard 8. Let's see, it's talking about standard out. This could be one thing, but I have GCC installed. So we reinstalled all that installation. Maybe we should add this version thing. That's the one thing we haven't done that they have. Although I don't think it's gonna be, it's probably not gonna matter. Look at all these errors. What are all these errors about? Yeah, so we did do the check health, and things seemed all right. It even said we had what we wanted. Hey, that was it. Cool. So it was the format in which this was assigned. Something about this was off. And this line's okay. Yeah, I guess that's it. Add. There you go. So it was the way the adapters were being called. What I have found in the past is that things like lazy Vim are a little bit misleading because neotest, often adapters are assigned like this. Interesting. And then they have their way of doing this on adapters. It tries to basically assign and map the required config. It's very interesting, a little bit convoluted, but what this code ends up allowing us to do is basically we can have, a really simple mapping where we're saying, hey, neotest Golang, this thing needs to please be passed in on a require and assign it to the require, the neotest setup. So it's just like an indirect way of doing the same thing. So I think I'm all right with kind of the old school way of doing this, keeping it simple. I think these options can go there. Let's see if that still works. So coverage, nearest test, summary, outline, all. There you go. Look at that. There's our tests found. Cool. Next is the debugger protocol. Good old DAP. And what did they say? Debugger. I think you assign it. Let's get rid of some of this. Coverage, neotest. Does Ian have DAP installed? Debugging. So we'll start playing around with this. I tend to lean on my understanding of lazy.envim and as best as the README describes what's going on. So neotest. One of these is debugging, right? Debug. Strategy DAP. Let's follow this. So neotest is going to tell us to do all of these things. Interesting. All right, so DAP, give it a star. I think it's been a really long time since I've even looked at this, let alone attempted to install it myself. All right, so let's just try it. By continuing to follow the best practices. Is this the same one? It is. All right. DAP UI, DAP virtual text, config, Meson DAP, Neovim. So this is some of the stuff that's his. We don't want all of this, but this is our starting point. All right, so we will go to here, dap.lua. Get args. What is get args about? On DA, get args. Interesting. Don't know what that one's about. And then Meson Neovim DAP. We could spend time looking into that, but I'm not going to right now. And then this is how they assign symbols, which I'll just do myself. And then we're not going to do any of that. Delve is the tool, huh? Okay. Oh, that's really good to know. So what I tend to do, right, we got DAP UI, we got DAP virtual text, Meson Neovim. I'm curious how this guy works. Between Meson and Neovim DAP. Provide extra convenience APIs such as DAP install, allow you to automatically install, automatically set up a predefined list of adapters, translate between names. So we put this on Meson. So this is Meson. So they have LSP config. So now DAP LSP. All right, so we'll start there. So now the question is like, once these guys exist, I think I need to call this, right? So Meson runs, and then is this guy setting up our other person manually after we set up the configuration? Ensure installed, tool installer setup. Yeah, so, and then Mason LSP setup. So part of me thinks that this Mason DAP invim setup needs to happen after Mason setup. So like this. This is where it gets kind of hairy. And I didn't know if I'd be diving into DAP configurations today. It's a lot, isn't it? Hey, cool. I could go, yeah, that's right. Delve is a straightforward one, isn't it? So then this guy, ensure install Delve, right? So that was step 1. For now, step 2 would be like having this test be, you must have this installed. Okay. So DAP Go setup has to be called. Where would we typically call that? So in our Neovim config, we have DAP. Let's get this guy. And then it's what Neo tests. This is where I start to get a little bit lost because all this stuff sort of is intermingled, isn't it? So on Fred's, did Fred's website talk about DAP? He does talk about adapters. Oh, interesting. He's not talking about DAP later. Got it. So DAP Go. Is this the same one we're using? Yeah. Cool. All right. So we'll get that guy installed. Let's just see what happens. So it should test. And then debug. It will just kind of do its own thing, won't it? It's our first time. Why is Zoom opening? All right, so then nothing happened. All right, fine, because of the timeout. Let's add a breakpoint. And let's run the debugger. Look at that virtual text. True and false. And then we continue. And it should just end, right? Continue. Was continue enough? Step into. Interesting. All right, so add a breakpoint, test debug. Debug continue. There we go. Debug continue. There you go. And then it ends. Okay, so the only thing I'm noticing is that this thing seems to be timing out or something. Let's see if he has any good discussion around it. Debug timeout symbol. I would say that's a win, though, that we got it running and working. This isn't quite the issue. But I wonder if the test fails that we get, like if I said this is supposed to be true and it runs as false, and we were to test this again, it doesn't really come out the other side, does it? So that's my main question. Debug. It may just be the way in which I understand it. And so that, I guess it is what it is. So I'll take it for now. Set up debugging. Cool. And I'm sure symbols can come later, like DAP, like we want to, here's our keys, here's our config, we want to add symbols. That's something nice to do in the future. Come on, and then we'll get rid of this. That's what all this is. You have to run it with debug test go mod. What does that mean? All right, so let's take a look at what you're saying. So the actual debug strategy DAP suite false. There wasn't much here about DAP, was there? Strategy DAP, suit. When starting the debug, I see. Well, let's get Debug UI would be good to set up. And maybe I can see a bit of what you're talking about. So we get DAP UI installed, which I think we already did. UI. It's highly recommended to use this to enable type checking. All right. Oh, let's merge these together. Cool. So you just include it like that. Configuration. We should have to call it, shouldn't we? Don't I have to call it? Simply call this startup message. All right, so let's try this again. So on DAP UI, it's all what we already expected. Here we go. All right, so then let's add something like that to our DAP UI. We toggle it like that. We have our configuration. Cool. All right, so then should be DU and DE. All right, so then that should be enough to get UI and then eval. All right, let's just try. Oh, and that'll automatically close. Nice. So now we should be able to dive in and get a sense of our session. Session exists 1 and 3. Very cool. And then I'm getting better at Go. For those that don't know, I'm not a full-time Go guy. This is a side project learnings. Sources. Config. Cool. So I'll get better at this over time, and we're, of course, pretty zoomed in. But I have it. Pretty cool. Let's go ahead and back here. UI. And I'll have to play around with this. I've actually seen that things like the DAP UI, okay, calm down. This can be called on its own, in its own place. And Neovim, especially as you assign the correct dependencies, seem to be able to load all of this correctly without it all being in the same file, which is definitely the tricky part. And then he is closing it when it terminates, which is fine, but I have to decide if I want to keep it that way. It is pretty handy, I would say. Yeah. Cool. So the question is, as I do more live streaming today, do I want to figure out how to work on a feature? I might as well. So I'm feeling good. We have all our things set up. We have our LSP. We have our testing or coverage or debugger? And can we run it? Now, I'd be curious on just maybe if I get to the point where I can work on it, if it would be all right for me to figure out from you, or if you know how to do this, how would I run code that's not a test? Like basically, can I run like the sesh code and get output like in the terminal or something, so that I can test things without having to manually build the CLI out every time? And with the CLI running, I don't really get to debug it, right? I have to manually debug it by using it. So something that I want to try. So it'll be easy to implement this feature. We basically want to ignore a session. So the idea being you could like blacklist a session. So anytime a teamwork session is called scratch, I don't ever want to see it, right? And so I think this is good enough. I have to do a little bit of auditing. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. And let's just call this blacklist sessions in the CLI. Here we go. We have our list. The list guy. What is he taking? It happens up here, doesn't it? List. So when we list lists, we do have our config. So we could start by just taking the config model and saying that we want session configs, default session configs, blacklist sessions. That's enough, right? Sesh config, we should be able to sessions test. I actually want at some point to add TOML support back. I think there's some useful TOML tools that could help me improve the experience for developers. Blacklist sessions, blacklist sessions, blacklist sessions. Blacklist. I'm trying to simplify this. We can decide, what do you guys think? Blacklist sessions or blacklist? It's sesh, so pretty much everything's tied to sessions, right? What would I say here? Can I comment? I forget exactly how code comments work if I was to look at this later. All right, we'll just play around with it and see what happens. So on the list, lister list, we go through our strategies, and list tmux is one of our strategies. Real lister will have our config. Yeah, given the context, that's fair. All right, so then we'll just implement this. So basically what we'll do is we'll match the name. So this is on his hide attach strategy. So we're basically gonna do something similar if ops dot, no, not ops, l dot config dot blacklist is not equal to nil. then we're going to basically are we going to do this? This is a array loop through array compare each string to I feel like this should be fine, right? So we're saying if B equals session directory session name, what is SES? S is this, right? I don't know if I understand this code fully. So it's going to be on me if I don't actually assign this correctly. We're ranging through this. We're seeing if the session, I don't need to list through the blacklist. I need to, where did sessions come from? Ordered index. This doesn't necessarily seem the most performant, and I recognize that, but we are looping through this, and if session ses name, then we do that, right? Is that going to be enough? Instead of having, yeah, this is where my brain explodes with not knowing how Go works. I promise I'm a good programmer. I just conceptually don't necessarily, it's been a minute since I've done this. So what is happening here? The ordered index is identifiers for all of the sessions that are attached to the current list. So part of me wonders, can I just do this in the tmux strategy? Or do I need to do this globally? So we have all of our lists, and I may say, okay, there's a specific one that I don't want. So we uninstall sesh. We already have, and then we, we list T, hide attached. So, right, the list is not going to be parsable. Let's try that. It is tmux : name of thing. So Is that where oh boy, we got too much. Gets the attached sessions. Copies the ordered index. Right, and my attached sessions will have indexes that match. So I don't want to do all of this every time. I think that this is overloading the point. I don't know why you would hide a config. So let's just go ahead and do it here. Here's all my sessions. And we exit early, right? Or is my number of sessions going to match? Yeah, it sure is. So let's see if Copilot can help us here. So we're asking if l.config.blacklist has a string that matches the session.name and don't add it to the and ensure the final and ordered index are only the items that are not blacklisted. All right, let's see if anything useful comes out of this. So we're going to write a function called is blacklisted. If not blacklisted, append and it's putting it in a weird place. So here's my first part. Strings needs to be added. And then I don't think this is useful for me. I'm still kind of getting my head straight around how this works. All right. I'm getting ahead of myself here, aren't I? So we want just the basics. Let's import strings. So we're saying for blacklisted names, if these match, then we say true. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. And then we're saying if it is blacklisted, or I'm trying to understand the difference here. check to see if it contains a session name. If it does, we will skip adding it to the directory. So it's this part. If not blacklisted. I see. So they're changing a lot, aren't they? Final ordered index is a new thing. Directory is a mapping of the model. So final order index means that we only add those. Man, it's a lot harder to see with this stuff. So we're repeating the whole process? Damn. We really got to do that? So they're saying there's a final ordered index. Then we add everything to that. And then the final ordered index is what goes here. And sessions came from where? Where are they inventing sessions? Guess we needed the whole context of the file. Sessions.directory. I don't know if this will be enough. So instead of doing that, we will be reading I don't think this is very performant. So let's get back to hilarious. I think it's already working. I just blacklisted myself. Yeah, so that is working. I could definitely. Oh, and I can't use the last command because it's going to always blacklist. So part of me, I've been taking some time thinking about this feature today in the last couple days. I partly think that it would be better served as maybe it would be good to blacklist it completely. Part of my thinking was only make it an opt-in CLI flag. But I guess the whole point in which the person that was asking for it said, I use Tmux FloatX and I just don't want that session to ever show up. So why don't we just install it? Actually, I think I already have it. Session config. We'll do Scratch. Let's get this guy installed. I don't know if he's enabled. Here we go. So we'll do a little prefix capital I. So pop-up. And it's called Scratch. Cool. So this is our Scratch. It's a cool little plugin. You guys can check it out. He did some cool. This is Omar. He's a fan of the. I'm a fan of him. He's a fan of me. He's in my Discord server too. If you guys ever want to hang out with Omar as well. And so we will do that. And now it doesn't exist, and yet it floats. Cool. So the feature works. The question is, yeah, that's exactly what the feature is supposed to do. So I'm going to go ahead and commit this. So we have our is blacklisted. I don't love the placement of that. But it works. Now, my guess is I actually believe the test might not pass if we don't have mocks set up, right? So mockery. Let's go ahead and update mocks. I'm never much a fan of this mockery thing being put in my. Andres, did you ever like ignore mock files? Is that something that you ultimately do, but then you ensure that the mockery gets ran on like development? Because I'm finding that these files are just really messy. There's a lot of them. Curious your thoughts. Or anyone else who's here that's hanging out and dealing with mockery generated files. Oh. Yeah. I mean, it's doing what we expect. So now the question is, let's keep that going. You push it to the repo. Yeah. It is what it is. Did it pass? It looks like it passed. Cool beans. What's our test coverage? If it equals something, we don't actually have that tested, do we? But it returns false plenty of times. So it's probably in our best interest that we write a test for that. Test blacklist hides tmux session. So I'm curious now if I was to add the current file. I say create a test for checking if the config blacklist hides the session from the output. I don't know, something like that. Basically, I'm just going to mock the config with the value, and then I'm gonna do an assertion. So it's pretty simple to see. So here, yeah, I mean, that should work. Gotta love. All right, so let's kind of simplify this. So there's the first, there's last, sesh main should be blacklisted. So we're asserting the ordered index length should be 1. We're asserting that the ordered index and the directory work. Yes, there's no error. It's a good enough test. Considering I didn't really have to do anything, it just kind of worked, is actually really great. Vim, I'm going to figure out, I'm going to figure something out real quick. All right, so then that is that. We have our tmux test. Our tests run and pass. Our tmux guy should have this covered. I guess if the test doesn't necessarily, we're not testing this exactly. Is it worth the trouble? I mean, it's not that hard to test something like that. But at the same time, is it like worth the trouble? You know? Because, oh, maybe my coverage isn't working anymore. It's probably worth calling out and seeing if it was worth the trouble. So there's probably something to it. Because if we think about it, I have tested that the blacklist can find something to be true. So technically it should have shown up. Neo test. Lazy config, neo test. I want this guy to come back. So let's go here. All right, so let's try this again. So we ensure that I'm working in a sane, repeatable way. That seems reasonable, right? And I went away, didn't I? I think my camera died. If you're wondering where Josh went. I should be able to maybe change that. All right, don't mind me. Give me a moment. Give me a moment, please. So this guy should be this guy, should be this guy. I'm going to show up differently, for sure differently. It's not the end of the world. Hello. We're switching cameras. Look how jaggedy I am. Jagged. I feel like one day I have a green screen. I don't know how to key it in quite right, and so I'll do that at some point. But I am back, baby. Hello, did you miss me? All right, so that's that. We're back here. I moved my screen. Give me a moment. All right. Maybe I'll just show my background the next stream. It's probably a little distracting. All right, so what should have happened is when I run this test, it should update the output file, which means that this guy should show coverage. And it doesn't. So now I'm super curious. This is my lister tmux. It is my lister tmux. Am I missing something, chat? Is it supposed to be? Am I understanding this correctly? If my test here is going to call lister list, this part right here should hit the conditional to be true. So I'm just wondering, am I thinking about this wrong, or should the test be creating coverage? Not that code coverage is everything. We know that to be true, right? The coverage file, however, lister tmux. I mean, what happens if I delete this, right? All right, let's quit. Let's quit. What could be happening is that the coverage file isn't being generated. It is not. So then I need to play around with that and figure out what's going on. So my make test does generate coverage. I mean, you see it here, coverage, coverage, coverage. So it's probably, oh, I need to get rid of this. So I use prefix P for previous and next. So I'll probably have to tmux config overwrite the binding. I don't know. What if we make it capital P? Sure. Find menu, capital P. Dang it, I just thought I just looked at it. Did I miss it? Oh, maybe it's not being assigned to this. Because I have it assigned. See how like last session via sesh is showing? H doesn't seem to be here. H. There we go. I'll take it. All right. So that's that. And this should have, yep, I get my previous and next back. And the coverage file shows up here. So that's good. My assumption was correct. The only thing to deal with now is figuring out why the coverage file didn't work. And it's my guess that it has to do with neotest, Golang. Can we search coverage recipes? So he is assigning this. Let's do that. So coverage profile, current directory out. Great. On this line is okay. Okay. So now, if we coverage out goes away, and we list tester again, then coverage out comes back. Okay, so that was good. And our test coverage should at least cover this file, and it does. The tricky thing is, and what I would expect is that there's a likely chance that other places that have been tested don't have coverage, right? And if you cover the test, coverage should exist, right? Oh, I did it in the wrong order. Config test. So that means config, oh, there's no coverage. And then we run the tests and we get coverage. Okay, awesome. That is really great. So we're going to test blacklist. And then we're going to go to our Neovim config and we're going to fix Golang test coverage generation. Awesome. And so I can get a better feedback loop, which I love that. In fact, if I was going to show this off and I wasn't, zoomed in a crazy amount, which, live streaming is something that comes with the territory. We have our tester, and then we have our test. What do I want to do? I want to show you guys that if I remove coverage out, there should be no coverage. And I want to go to tmux. We want to test it. So what should happen is if I run testing, we should get updates automatically. And if I was to run that test again, it automatically updates. Very cool. So says, we'll cover that. We run the test. It reloads the coverage and it adds that to it. Yeah, I like a satisfying feedback loop. That one feels pretty good. So if I was to test the error, right, we could say, oh, so add a test ensuring for the code error. I wonder if that's enough. Or it's like, sure, let me scaffold the entire project up for you. And we can choose theirs, and we can add a little test, and it's going to say failed. Undefined format. Do I need that? I guess it's part of the test. And then there's coverage, and then our error's covered. Hell yeah, that's awesome. And now I need to run the whole file in order to get the full coverage. Did you guys just see that, or was my mind just blown and no one else was paying attention? I literally just wrote test this, and it wrote me my test. Do I love how busy these tests are and how much code it requires? No. But holy smokes, that just worked. So if I want code coverage, I probably could use a tool like Aider. If you guys haven't heard of Aider, just have Aider write me some tests and make sure my assertions are correct. And then just a little bit of code review will tell me if it's working or not. Cool. So we're going to test couldn't find sessions assertion. Cool. So that's our feature. This is always my sanity check when I turn off tmux config, not tmux config, sesh config. When I want to turn this off, I want to make sure that I can tmux list-t, and there's scratch, and it didn't crash, right? That was one of the thoughts was like, I want to make sure that this doesn't crash. And then I turn it back on. It's not there. Cool. All right. And then my last sanity check is there aren't that many tmux sessions open at once. And if there is, you're a crazy person. And I need to check your sanity because I might have 10 open at a time. And that's starting to really push it from my own experience. And so beyond that, it's like, wait, what is going on? Why are you doing this? So the real question now is, I kind of want to say like, audit the blacklist logic. Does this scale well? Are there any performance bottlenecks or potential memory leaks? What would you suggest to improve the code overall? Give me. All right. Let's just kind of see what happens, right? Let it think. Yeah, this is something we've done before on the project. Sorry, I can't read this well. You're repeating the check, right, for each session, which is definitely inefficient if the blacklist gets too large which it's not meant to be large. I'm also wondering why someone would do that. The ordered index slice is initially allocated with the number of sessions, but is later filtered, which is unused memory allocation. That was my concern with this whole ordered index, final ordered index, right? So num of sessions changes based off that filtering. And part of me thinks, should it happen early on list sessions? But we don't want any dependencies there. So let's see what they say. Double iteration. All right, so we iterate over tmux sessions to build the directory. Then we iterate over it again to filter out the blacklist. We definitely can do that. So convert the blacklist to a set of a map on lookup time, combine the creation of the directory and ordered index with the blacklist filtering in a single iteration. Single iteration, I like that. And then dynamic slice allocation, use dynamic slice allocation for ordered index to avoid pre-allocating memory. Got it. Does that sound right? What's up, Pone? Pone's here, everybody. Welcome in, man. We configured Go and Neovim today. So we got code coverage, we got testing, we got debugging protocols, and we're now having Copilot help us answer the questions as to how to optimize some code or blacklisting sessions. So if there's a certain session you don't want to have listed, Sesh can, explicitly opt out of those things. All right, so let's see what they're going to say. Here's a search replace blocks to implement these improvements. So when we list, we generate a blacklist set. So blacklist set, we loop through it once and we generate the strut. Fine. I like that. Let's not range. And then our ordered index, I think I still need to do an assertion on if error not nil. Oh, that's right. Fine. All right. So then if blacklisted, if not blacklisted, we're just inlining this. This is good old Go. We take the ordered index, we append the ordered index with the key. Does that sound right? Cool. Yeah, so I'm liking Avante for those that are watching me use AI today. This is new. I added Capuchin support myself. So I went in and added a new integration. It's there's a pull request open. And I like the virtual text a lot. So there's this like virtual thing where you say ask or edit. But more importantly, the way that this one works is you assign selected files. So you can pass files in manually and say this file, this file, this file. And it can do multi-file editing. And as you just watched, I went ahead and did it one by one, but you take a hunk and you can apply this with A or apply all of the suggested changes with capital A. It creates that diff that you saw, and then I used, in this case, you can say CO for ours. Ours is the code that I wrote, and then CT, choose theirs. So I want their code being the one AI is providing. I'm finding it's fairly intuitive. And we have something that needs to be adjusted, right? What is it saying? What is happening? Did I screw this up, or did Avante give me bad code? If that should be right. Oh, but is it ending right? I see. No, that should be it, right? If this thing and not blacklisted, then follow this work. What did I do? Why did I screw it up? Oh, I need to do the for session. Did I lose an important piece? We have our sessions. We have our directory, our ordered index, which is unassigned, right? We're not doing memory allocation ahead of time. Got it. Cool, man. Andres, yeah, have a good night. I will be ending my stream soon. But thanks for hanging out. Cool. So that was that. All right. So what we're saying is create a set. Can I create extract the blacklist set range into its own function, then call it. I don't like seeing it there. Yeah. Cool. So we're going to create the set by doing this. We're going to list with the set. We're going to attempt to list. We're going to go ahead and do this after, because if tmux isn't working and we can't list any sessions, I don't really want to go through this trouble. We have our directory, our ordered index. All right. So first, the first thing that should have happened was nothing should have changed regarding testing. And look at that. Our blacklist can be created. And then when we build and we slash list dash T, we shouldn't see Scratchpad. And what did I assign it to? All right. Yep, it's working. Cool. So that is our performance. Actually, I actually want to try this as well. So NeoGet. If we commit and we use Copilot chat generate commitison convention. You guys want to see this action? This is pretty cool. It's going to read the changes and give us some feedback. And then give us the message. Optimize blacklist processing. Use a map to store blacklist sessions for faster lookup and simplify the tmux list function logic. Look at that. I didn't have to write it, and that's pretty much it. Pretty cool. We're going to push upstream. Wait, hold on. Did I not create a blacklist sessions? Blacklist session configuration. So this closes our new thing. $214, right? Closes $214. Filtered out of the cool. Your sesh.toml. And what was our example? Scratch. Good old documentation. Are we happy with this? All right, so we've got our project. What do I want to do here? Open the README. So where does he want me to put this? He, like it's a thing. So I'll probably do this myself. not default session, configuration, listing configuration, background. All right, where is it? Blacklisting. You may want to blacklist certain directories, blacklist certain Tmux sessions from showing up in the results. Cool. That is all I want. Cool. So then docs add docs add instructions for using blacklist config. Cool. All the frickin' mockup changes. Part of me thinks that I should run mockup patch updates, configs, like early on, like really early on in my development cycle. But it is what it is. The majority of the work is done here. So we have a new is blacklisted and create blacklist set. The blacklist set comes from, these both are really simple. They probably don't have to live here. If I was being picky, I might as well be picky. It's my project. I would blacklist.go. I think I would put these Tmux in its own file, blacklist. Okay, so make build, make test. Sesh list. We still have our pop-up, but Scratch doesn't show. I'm going to keep it simple. So refactor, move blacklist functions to their own file. They're still private, so they still live. Yeah, so see, here's a simpler thing. So now we're just saying, create the blacklist set, create the directory, and then the ordered index now isn't assigning memory allocation ahead of time because we don't necessarily know how many sessions we're going to have. And then we do a quick, if blacklist's not blacklisted, then we do our previous logic again. A little bit of formatting, some new tests, new config option. That's it. So like always, I like to merge this right before bed and hope that I didn't blow something up, and I'll be around in the morning if anything important comes up. Let's go ahead and rebase and merge. And we have a new config option. How exciting. So I usually just kind of take this and we will make a release. Good old button mashing. So we're at 210. How exciting. V210 based off of generate release notes. We're going to call this introducing the blacklist configuration option that takes an array of strings, each of which will automatically filter out each item listed from the Tmux server list. Works great with FloatX. Cool. 210, that seems right. 210, 210, 210, scratch. Let's go. How exciting. All right, so we got another release today. This guy will run. And this is a super fun stream. I know some of you like watching me configure Neovim, however exciting that might be for you. And I am finding my new configuration to be really helpful. And always glad to ship a new feature, so excited for that as well. And grateful for you guys to hang out with me tonight. And feel free to join the Discord server if you haven't already. Jump to joshmodeski.com and join us there. And the conversations are flowing. We're having a good time. And happy weekend. Some of you, it's already Friday. So hope you guys are going well. And yeah, I'll see you next stream. Later.